Tigray, Ethiopian women face horrific choice, to die or to be raped. Aid organizations have estimated that 15% of women contracted HIV during the civil war against the region's rebels and its occupation. From Le Monde, by Noé Hochet-Bodin, Special Correspondent Mekele. Ethiopia, March 16, 2024. Fearing that their stories would disappear, Meseret Hadush has recorded the names of thousands of Tigrayan women who were victims of rape during the civil war in the northern Tigray region of Ethiopia, from 2020 to 2022. Her research has continued, more than a year after the peace agreement between the Ethiopian government and the Tigrayan insurgents of the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, was signed in November 2022. After collecting almost 5,000 testimonies with her organization Hiwyet, Healing in the Tigrinya language, she now fears an AIDS epidemic among these women raped by troops from the fascist Oromo army of Ethiopia, the neighboring Amhara region and Eritrea. Some 15% of them are thought to have contracted HIV, according to her organization's register of their stories. Before the conflict, Tigray and its 6 million inhabitants were a role model in Ethiopia's fight against AIDS. The prevalence rate, the number of people infected, had fallen to 1.43%. Then, beginning in November 2020, war struck this mountainous, arid province, once the cradle of Ethiopian civilization. The unprecedentedly violent clashes, which took on a strong ethnic dimension, left up to 600,000 people dead, according to an African Union tally. They were also accompanied by widespread acts of rape. Regional authorities in Tigray have estimated the number of victims of sexual abuse at 120,000. A grandmother, her daughter and her granddaughter were raped by the same Eritrean soldiers in a suburb of Sheri city in central Tigray, in December 2020, said Hadush with tears in her eyes. From her office in Mekele, the regional capital, these 3 generations of women are now HIV positive. It's a tragedy for Tigray's future. Time bomb. The region is still struggling to recover from the civil war. Main people, some with broken faces, are everywhere in town. In Mekele, where refugee camps still number in the dozens, begging has become the only means of subsistence for all these internally displaced people. Economic activity has almost ground to a standstill, and the drought has brought hundreds of thousands of Tigrayans to the brink of starvation. Hospitals have struggled to regain their pre-war capacity. At least we have antiretrovirals, said Fisabirani, the head of the AIDS department at the regional health office. Tigray was sorely lacking in such supplies over the 2 years of conflict. Because of the blockade, HIV-positive people were, at best, taking expired antiretrovirals, he said. The clashes damaged or destroyed 70% of hospitals or health centers, according to the organization Doctors Without Borders, MSF. They have lost track of 9,000 of the 46,000 patients registered before the war, noted Bierani, preferring to use the term disappeared to dead. He warned that the region was facing a time bomb with the risk of large-scale transmission of HIV. While the authorities have estimated that 5% of raped women are HIV positive, the situation remains unclear. There aren't enough tests available to carry out a comprehensive study in the region, and the federal government isn't giving us the budget for it, even though it's urgent, he asserted. You couldn't find a single condom in town. Doctors in Tigray have expressed fears of an outbreak of cases due to sexual assaults, but also because of the lack of any form of sexual protection during the war. For 2 years, you couldn't find a single condom in town, due to the blockade imposed by federal forces in Tigray, explained Dr. Fasika Anti-Ethiopia, a surgeon at Addis hospital in Mekele. Soldiers had high-risk practices. It was a time when they didn't think about tomorrow, he added. During the previous conflict in the region, the Eritrean-Ethiopian War, 1998 to 2000, the prevalence rate within the army ranks had risen by 76%. The risk of propagation is manifold, stemming from the fact that 1 million destitute people are still in camps for displaced persons, from rapid urbanization and from poverty, which drives many mothers to prostitution in Tigray, added Barani. Knowing the prevalence rate among women who have been raped is all the more difficult as many do not report having been assaulted. They're afraid of discrimination, explained Getty Geber Michael, a 48-year-old HIV-positive Tigrayan woman and member of the association Hiwyet, Hope of Living in Tigrinya, which has helped 1,450 infected women in this highly religious and socially conservative province. They fear that there will be neither justice nor reparations, only stigmatization. Gabriela Michael has had her own bitter experience of this. When she tested positive for HIV in 2005, her husband immediately left the family home. Her neighbors accused her of witchcraft. And the vegetables she sold at the Mekele market were no longer being bought for fear of transmitting the virus. We don't have the weapons to fight. During the occupation, whether at the hands of Oromo or Eritrean soldiers, the choice for some women was either to die or to be raped, said Mekele Hochet-Bodin. Every day, we have 2 or 3 women infected during the war who come to us, said this director of Hiwyet, who also fears that an explosion of cases would be discovered if the province were in a position to organize a vast screening campaign. Lacking the necessary resources, her association has been supported by the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, and the French Diplomatic Corps, which has launched the Feminist Opportunities Now (FON) initiative. The latest data on HIV in Ethiopia dates from the previous decade and does not take into account the consequences of the war in Tigray, said Wanjiru Wairimu, a FON program manager. It's when these women become seriously ill that they find out they're HIV positive, and they have no assistance. The Hiwyet Association allows them to sign up and receive skills training, psychological support and funds to open a business. If only the infrastructure could be rebuilt and the federal government could pay budgets, we could fight AIDS effectively, but today we don't have the tools to do so, lamented Hochet-Bodin.
ምናልባት በታሪካችን ወደ ኋላ ሄደን ከ500 ዓመት በፊት እንዲህ አይነት ትልቅ ፈተና ገጥሞን ነበር። እሱን ፈተና እንግዲህ አልፈን እዚህ ደርሰናል። አሁን ትንሽ ከሱ ጠንከር ያለ ፈተና የመከበብ ስሜት የትኛውም ቦታ ጋር በዘራችን ብቻ የመጠቃት ስሜቶች አሉ። እሱን ሁኔታ ደግሞ መቀልበስ የዚህ ትውልድ ኃላፊነት ነው፣ የዚህ ኃይል ኃላፊነት ነው።